Okay, friends, so you'll be going home soon, back to your daily lives, practice Dhamma in the daily life. Yesterday I spoke about the Eightfold Path as really the practice of the Dhamma in daily life. And I wanted to, in this last talk about how the average person comes to Dhamma and sort of the state and condition that most people are in. And it's called the simile of the raft. So we're going to go on a little journey. Okay, you like journeys? Okay. So just imagine that you were getting in your car a nice Saturday morning and you say, oh, let me take a drive and go out and experience nature and be happy and watch the birds and have a picnic and so on, just sort of minding your own business like the average Joe out there in the world, right? So you drive out into the countryside, you park your car, at the trailhead, and you start to take a little walk across the countryside with your little picnic basket. And all of a sudden the ground starts shaking and there's an earthquake. And your hair stands on end, and the ground's starting to crack and open up, and you get scared and terrified and start running, and jumping over this crack and that crack, and then finally, the earthquake stops, and you kind of, and think that you're free from that danger. And then you keep on walking. Then all of a sudden a tsunami or a flood, from the earthquake. Right? That's what happens. So the big flood starts coming and you get terrified. Oh my gosh. And you run and run and run. And finally you outrun the floodwaters, or you reach some higher ground. And you escape that danger. And then you keep on walking. And then there's a tornado, huge wind. And trees are being uprooted and flying around, and you get scared from that, and you run and run and run, and finally you get away from that storm and avoid getting hit by trees. Then you think you're free from that danger. And then you walk into another woods, and all of a sudden there's a big forest fire. The flames jumping up, and so you run and run and escape, run out the other end of the forest to escape that fire. And then you look back and you're thinking, my gosh, what else could happen? And then you keep on walking. By that time, he's lost his picnic lunch somewhere. He's dropped it. And then some robbers jump out from behind some boulders with raised swords, wanting to attack you. And so he runs and runs and runs to get away from these robbers. And he sees a village. He says, oh, let me go in the village and get some help. So he runs into the village and knocks on all the doors, but nobody home. There's no help. He can't get any help. Even the sheriff is gone. And then he doesn't know what to do. And then all of a sudden, he turns around and sees a ghost. Ah! Runs out of the village. And then he comes to a broad river. There's a nice wide river there. And he's looking around to see what other dangers are following him. And he looks to the other side, and it looks very peaceful on the other side of the river, with palm trees kind of swaying in the breeze and birds chirping and fruit-laden trees, and it looks very calm and peaceful. So he said, "Oh, let me get over to the other side." Then he realizes, "I can't swim. What are you going to do?" And then he spies some logs stuck in the mud on this side of the bank. An idea of faith pops into his mind. If I can just pull out these logs and tie them together, I can make a raft and get on that raft and go to the other side. So with great faith and energy, he goes down and starts pulling out the logs that are sunk in the mud. They make that sucking sound as you're pulling the logs out. With great strength, he managed to pull them out. There was 8 of them, 8 logs. So now you get the picture, right? So 8 logs. Then he's got to tie them together. Logs are not just going to stay together by themselves. So he looks around some trees and he sees some vines, or kripa, as I see in Sri Lanka, right? Kripas, vines. So he says, I'll get some vines and tie the logs together. So, he does that. Finally, then he has to drag this whole raft down to the edge of the river, and then he launches it into the river and gets on it. Then start paddling. Then as he's paddling, something starts biting his hand. Piranhas in the river, crocodiles. And so he has to paddle faster and faster to get away from those crocodiles or piranhas. And then he gets out a little ways, and then he sees a whirlpool. He's headed for a whirlpool. He sees that, I better not get stuck in at him. So with great effort, he paddles away from the whirlpool. And then out in the middle of the river, there's a sandbar. He doesn't want to get stuck on the sandbar. So again, with great effort, he managed to paddle away and avoid the sandbar. Then finally, he gets close to the other side. But then, on the other side, just in the water at the bank, there's a lot of submerged trees and other debris from previous floods and so on that would prevent the raft from actually getting onto the bank of the other side. So he's going, how am I going to get through this, all this obstruction? So he looks for a little ford. He looks for a little sort of opening in the debris where he can kind of slide the raft through. So then finally he finds that, and he lands the raft on the bank, and he gets off. It's very peaceful on that bank, and there's mango and papaya trees there with ripe fruit. And he goes out and picks a luscious, ripe fruit, and enjoys that. And the birds are chirping, and the cool breeze is blowing. And then he takes a little hike and comes up onto top of a hill where he has a 360-degree panoramic view. And he builds himself a little pole-out-two hut, pole-out-two, right? Tree branches. So he lives happily ever after. So that's the story. Now, what is the comparison to Dhamma in that story? Now, yesterday, I was talking about that simile of somebody running and grabbing a rope jumping on the rope, and that momentum carried him over to the other side, and then he dropped and let go. So it's kind of a similar story, but the raft is different. So those are two different ways of explaining how a person reaches the other bank of the liberated mind. So anyway, coming back to the story. So who is this regular Joe? So it's, anybody, wanting to be happy, minding their own business, he goes for a walk. And then the earthquake. What is the earthquake, the flood, the tornado, and the fire represent? Come on, you dumb aficionados. Huh? The four elements, right? Earth, fire, water, and air. How they're impermanent and they're unstable and they're subject to being changed. So this person is experiencing that. All these four elements are trying to kill him. So the same way in our body. Our body is subject to sickness and disease and getting broken, and if we get dehydrated, we might get sick and die, and if there's too much wind in the body, we get sick. If any of these four elements of our body are disturbed or not in balance, then they cause us all kind of pain and problems, just like those four elements. And so people are afraid. Now people are afraid that they're going to get sick as you get older. Things start happening. Your vision goes off, your teeth get decayed, you're losing your strength as you get older. Now with DNA, you're thinking, oh my gosh, my parents had these diseases, am I gonna get those, And so all these worries come into the mind. And so you want to indulge in sensual pleasures or other things, or accomplish your bucket list, or you just seek pleasure to avoid these painful thoughts, and so on, or mask over the idea of getting old. So get tummy tucks and the facelifts and dye their hair, and you remove all the wrinkles, and to kind of have the illusion that they're still young. But anyway, now he comes out, and then the robbers, the 5 robbers, you should know those. 5 robbers wanted to cut this person's head off or cause them pain.
5 interests.
No. Aggregates. 5 aggregates, yes. Form, feeling, perception, volition, and consciousness. Because these things are also trying to cause us pain all the time. Well, the body, we've already mentioned that one. But the painful feelings that you have, right? All the racking pain or other pains that you have in the body, that also causes people to seek pleasure, seek distraction, so that, to mask over the pain, or just take all kinds of pills and drugs to mask over whether it's physical pain or mental pain. So these, this aggregate of feelings, are causing people the suffering. And then perceptions too. This guy saw a ghost, right? The perception in his mind, and he got fear of that. Although that fear helped him run away and find the river. But so all of our perceptions, the way we imagine the world to be, and the way we cling on to these objects that are just basically created out of molecules and atoms, we get all attached to them, but they're subject to a change. And our emotions, and even our consciousness. So anyway, those 5 aggregates. And then you run into the village. What does the village represent? Security or help or safety. So he runs in the village for help, but he doesn't find any. It's unreliable. So the same way we run into the village, run into the city, go to the cinema, go to the movies, go to a disco, go to all these things, trying to find some happiness. But after you come out, you get attacked, and go back to suffering. People leave their football games. There's some robbers around the corners, and so that happiness is very short-lived. There's nothing that really stays with you in that village. So it refers to the six senses, indulging our tongue and eye and ear and nose, trying to find pleasure or happiness through those things that are constantly changing. And then the ghost. What does the ghost represent? Huh? No self. He realizes there's nobody that owns this thing. There's there's nothing in here that can control anything. So he has experience that there's no help. There's no self. God's forsaken me, or whatever. So he runs down to the bank. Now, what does the flowing river represent? Yeah, the river of life. And you can't step into the same river twice, because life is continually flowing. And life is basically moments of hearing, seeing, tasting, smelling, touching, and thinking that are constantly changing. So the flowing river represents anicca. And the guy can't swim. What does that mean? They don't know the Dhamma. They don't know any way to get help from all this suffering. I was just going to keep falling down. So the can't swim means ignorance. But then he sees 8 logs stuck in the bank. What does that refer to? Well, a book on Dhamma. Maybe you go to a friend's house and there's a, what the Buddha taught on the guy's coffee table, and you haven't heard about that before, and you look, what the Buddha taught. The path to freedom. You take a look at it. Faith springs up in your mind. Now I can do something. And so he starts to practice the Noble Eightfold Path. But you have to pull out those lugs. You have to know what is, right view, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood. Right effort, mindfulness, right concentration. You got to tie them together. A lot of people that read these things and they think they're just disjointed things. Right view, right mindfulness, and they kind of think they're going to practice these things separately, or all they need to practice. Well, no, I'll just practice meditation. I don't need right view, I don't need right thought. Just let me sit down and concentrate. So anyway. So you have to know how to weave those 8 steps of the Eightfold Path together using the right effort. So he ties them together. And that means through the practice of mindfulness, concentration, and your study, and practicing sila, and so on. You tie them together. And so the vines that you're tying them together are the teachings of the Dhamma. Suttas that you're reading, or gaining more knowledge, reading more books, or going to, finding, like the Sangha, wanting to learn more about the Dhamma and the practice. So like that, you're using that to tie the logs together. And then the great effort to pull the logs out. And to actually, put it in the water and start paddling. So that would be like, the beginning of practice. You start observing the precepts maybe. You start practicing meditation a little bit. So like, you're testing the raft to see if it's going to float. You launch it into the water. So you have this desire to practice the Dhamma. And then, as you're starting to practice, you get bit by sharks and crocodiles. What does that represent? Anybody from your own experience? The sensual desires that want to keep pulling you back, You want to meditate in the morning or evening, but somebody says, "Hey, let's go have a beer at the bar," just the weakness, you kind of give up, and so so it's the forces of the world that are trying to pull us back, but especially sensual desires. But it could be other emotions too, but mainly that. And so you have to have, great strength to paddle fast to get away from those crocodiles, getting bit by, getting addicted back, getting caught back into your bad habits or addictions. So that's where the right effort comes in, and the mindfulness. And so you have to be mindful, and you're looking out. You're starting to cross the river, and then you spy that whirlpool. So you have to be mindful. Then you have to be concentrated. You have to have the further bank in the eye. That's where I'm going, and not veering off toward the whirlpool or to the sandbar. So what is the whirlpool? It's the dark emotions, like despair, depression. People get sunk in depression and they want to commit suicide or whatever, or just other despair and dark emotions, basically. They want to suck you down. So you have to use great mindfulness and concentration and wisdom to prevent the mind from getting sucked into those dark states. And then the sandbar. What's the sandbar represent? That's a good one.
The hindrances.
No, the I am conceit. The conceit. Now, when a lot of people practice Dhamma, they think, "Oh, I'm such a good Dhamma practitioner. Look at these other people; they're not practicing so well." So people might get stuck on their own pride of being a great meditator or being better than somebody else, and so on. So to avoid getting stuck on the sandbar of the ego. And then finally, the other side, you get close to the other side. And then you see these submerged trees. You can't see them so clearly from the surface, but they're right underneath the surface of the water, and the raft would get stuck on them. So those represent the 5 higher fetters. So this is talking about an analogy of the 10 fetters that we talked about a little bit. And those 5 lower fetters get you to never returning, but the 5 higher fetters are the unconscious tendencies. So on the surface, people might think that, after practicing Dhamma a lot, and they think that they're free from greed and anger as long as everything is going well in their life. But if their buttons are really pushed, then you can notice deep kind of residual stuff coming up, desire or aversion or ego and so on, what you call the latent tendencies. In the higher fetters, the desire to be reborn in heaven, or the desire to kind of a spiritual pride, and desire to be reborn in a Deva Loka or in some other higher realms, and these are called the subtle fetters. that have to be overcome until you actually reach the furthest shore. But anyway, finally you reach the furthest shore, and basically that's the Nibbana. And then the fruit trees, I talked about enjoying the fruit, right? Or the path and the fruit. So the moment the raft touches the shore, you reach the path. And you're standing around looking, and maybe kind of just immediately just, wow, and looking back at where you came from. And then, it takes them a while to then spot the fruit trees. Or maybe devise a way to climb up there to get the fruit. But eventually he gets up there and eats the fruit, and enjoys the fruit of all of his labors. So anyway, that's just an analogy. Oh, and then, what is going up on top of the hill and building a hut and enjoying, forever after? Yeah, liberation. So that is kind of the predicament, that people are in. They want to be happy, yet all these other things are continually causing them pain and worry and fear, whether it's natural disasters or, your hereditary things or just your past karma and so on. So that is how we use the Dhamma. Now this person who achieved the raft, and once you parked the raft and enjoyed the fruit, you're going to take a walk, and he thought, should I carry this raft on my head? It can be pretty heavy, Why don't I just leave the raft here and then let somebody else use it, and to walk freely. So that means not carrying the Dhamma around on your head and wanting to beat other people with it, or get rich and famous and as being a great Dhamma teacher or whatever, and influencing people. And we've seen that happen a lot, and people get exposed later on, and you get a lot of problems. But anyway, so using the raft, we use it to cross the ocean of suffering. And once we've reached it, then we don't need to, make a burden out of it, carrying it on our head. It's for a purpose. We reach the other shore, so you don't need it anymore. So once, somebody attains the liberation, you don't need to practice the precepts anymore, because they become automatic, and you wouldn't break the precepts automatically, because the defilements in your mind that would have caused you that would have been overcome, and other things. So you don't have to force yourself to get up every morning at 5 o'clock and meditate, because your mind is in a perpetual state of meditation, and so on. So anyway, it's just an analogy, that simile of the raft. And so you can see the comparison between the raft simile and the simile of the person, running to grab the rope. So the rope would be like the Noble Eightfold Path, sees it hanging there, and he runs and grabs that rope, and practicing it, and swings over that point where, just before you get to the point of the empty house, it's like, but if you don't see that empty house as peaceful, you're not going to dissolve into it. Oh, I got to see my great-grandkids graduate from college. Oh, it's going to prevent you from letting go of the rope, or any other kind of memory. I didn't forgive so-and-so for, telling me lies. And so you can't let go of the rope, and you swing back to the other side. So so friends, that's the way that we should try to see the practice of the Dhamma. Now, at the end of a retreat, the big question is, how can we practice the Dhamma in daily life? or especially how can we continue to develop our meditation practice in daily life. Now, most of you have been meditating for already many years, so you have some Dhamma practice, and I know some of you meditate every day regularly and so on. Others may not meditate, so regularly, or they get distracted and have other problems going on. But anyway, most teachers will tell you if you want to make steady progress in meditation, that means in developing your mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom, that ideally meditating twice a day is ideal, for probably a minimum of 30 minutes, but at least 30 minutes or up to 45 minutes or an hour or even longer, but each person would be different. But anyway, and then again in the evening. Now the morning meditation is important because the morning meditation sets up the vibration in your awareness of more mindfulness and hopefully more being grounded in the present moment, so that when you start to go to work or get busy, that hopefully that morning meditation will give you an edge on that, or at least to help you remain more centered for part of the day. But usually by noon that will wear off. Usually whatever benefits you might have gotten from the morning meditation, especially if you have to work, you have family, you have a lot of obligations, probably by mid-morning or so the effects of that would have wore off. And then you might be rushing around and get worried, I got to take my kid to a soccer match, they got a flat tire, and all these things happen, in daily life. People get upset and they might lose their mindfulness and get angry or blame somebody. So the evening meditation comes into whatever you might have accumulated during the day to let go, to reflect on it, and especially to practice forgiveness and metta are good things to practice in the evening. For anybody that might have crossed you during the day, not to hold that, and to forgive them, ask for their forgiveness, forgive yourself if you did something unmindfully and you're kind of blaming yourself about it, forgive yourself, and then send metta to oneself as well as all other beings to help free yourself from any negative thoughts. So hopefully you will have a good sleep, a peaceful sleep. And then when you do wake up in the morning, you'll be more kind of hopefully refreshed and then want to sit for the meditation. So people have these good intentions. And at the end of the retreat, especially longer retreats, but people, maybe you're already thinking, oh yes, I'm going to meditate every day. I'm going to get up at 5 o'clock now. I'm going to do those yoga exercises, and then I'm going to sit for meditation. And oftentimes people ask me, because of the yoga and meditation, how much time should we spend with the yoga? How much time should we spend with the meditation? So usually I have a rule of thumb. 20 minutes yoga, 40 minutes meditation. Because meditation ultimately is more important than the yoga. And people can get caught up in the body and all that. So, you just do a minimum of it to loosen up the joints mainly, keep the body limber, and then do some deep breathing and things like that. So when you sit, hopefully you'll be more awake and have a better feeling in the body. But so that rule of thumb, 20 minutes yoga, 40 minutes meditation, that's just a arbitrary thing. But it's kind of the idea is that the meditation is more important than the yoga, because people get caught up and they just want to do the yoga and forget about the meditation. In most yoga centers, they do an hour of yoga and 3 minutes meditation. Or some laying down, they call it meditation only. So, for us Buddhists, the meditation is ultimately more important than the yoga, but, the yoga is beneficial if your body is still, a problem. You have lots of pains and stiffness or sickness, to have a good state of health is a blessing. So, But anyway, so people have these good intentions. So people are going to go home from the retreat and they say, yeah, I'm going to meditate twice a day. And so maybe they do for the first couple of days. But then they've been gone on retreat for several days or maybe longer if it's a 10-day retreat and somebody had to cover your work at your work site, or you had to hire a babysitter or a cat sitter to watch all your cats and dogs, and then they want you to do something for them later on. You have to cover for somebody else who's going on vacation at work, so you have to work harder. And so, usually it's the night meditation is the first one to be let go. You might do the morning and evening meditation, but after some time you get busy, you have to work a lot and things, and then all you want to do is go home, jump in the bed or watch a horror movie, go to sleep, and skip the meditation. And then some days later, a week later, that 45-minute meditation might be dropped to 30 minutes. Then a week later, the 30-minute meditation may drop to 15 minutes because of various things. And then before you know it, you're swigging down the last cup of Joe coffee, and you pat the Buddha on the head and say, Namo Buddhaya, you meditate for me. And that becomes all your meditation. Oh yeah. Sound familiar? Okay, so Mokara Karana. Mokara Karana. What to do? And we know that it is difficult for people to maintain a meditation practice, especially for lay people that have jobs or have families and social obligations and whatever, or just other ingrained habits that trying to take the time away from doing what you want to do. So the people that find themselves not able to continue a daily meditation practice, we've come up with a new kind of meditation, although it's not new now, it's been around for a long time, called the M&M. You all know what that is already because I've talked myself blue in the face so talking about this all the time. But when I ask people later, did you do M&Ms every hour? So, well, I did one last week. No, that's not going to cut it. So basically an M&M is short for a minute meditation, or a minute of mindfulness, or a mini meditation, however you want to say it. But the practice is you train yourself to stop every hour during the day and just let go of what you were doing, the future, let go of what you were thinking about, worrying, and just bring your attention to the body. When you're standing is the best time to actually do it, but even if you're sitting, but just kind of freeze in your tracks and just let go of that forward momentum and take a deep, slow breath. You take a deep, slow breath, hold the breath in, and hold the breath in. So it feels so good for 5 or 6 seconds. And then slowly breathe out. And that's like instantly brings you back to the present moment. And you would have forgotten about what you were rushing to or thinking about. Well, maybe not totally, but at least they'd take 2 or 3. So even taking 2 or 3 breaths is already a minute, as I demonstrated, if you can do that. That's why it's one of the best practices, all around practices. It's going to be very beneficial to develop that 3-part breathing so it's very easy and you don't have to strain at it. And you can do it a drop on a dime anytime. Anyway, so you, for 1 minute, and just come back to breathing in, standing, breathing out, standing. You were, hearing, thinking. Kind of bring back all your Dharma understanding, in that 1 minute. Or you could practice metta in that 1 minute. May all beings be well and happy. May all beings be free from greed, hatred, and delusion. Uh, and then you carry on with what you were doing. But you need to do it once an hour, because it's like collecting raindrops from a roof. If you just collect 1 or 2 raindrops, you're not going to have enough to, slack your thirst. And so just doing 1 or 2 a day probably, could be effective temporarily, but, it's not going to kind of get accumulated. So if you can do it once an hour, then, at the end of the day, you'd have had 12 minutes of meditation. But quality meditation, because anybody can really stop for 1 minute. Anybody can kind of stop their mind pretty much from thinking for 1 minute, especially if they're doing something like deep, slow breathing or something. But if I ask you to stop for 5 minutes, 5 minutes, impossible, during the day. But 1 minute, can you stop for 1 minute? 1 minute, 1 minute. But you have to feel like a fool thinking you can't stop for just 1 minute, right? So it's a kind of a psychological thing. But even in that 1 minute, it's very powerful for reconnecting to the present moment and telling yourself, okay, relax, relax. It's not that bad. Whatever happened in the previous hour is not that bad. And there's good times to do that when you have to go in to talk to somebody. Like go in and talk to the boss about getting a raise, or the colleague is telling lies about you wanting to get your job, or you have to go into your kid's room to, and find a bag of marijuana, and what is this, So, wherever there could be tension when you talk to people, you prep yourself. Whatever happens in there, you take a few deep breaths before going in. Say, okay, whatever happens, stay cool, stay connected to the body. And then you go in and do that, and hopefully that would prevent you from, saying or doing something to that person or that situation that will come back to you or make it worse. So, like that, that's why those, and doing the M&Ms, especially if you continue it in the afternoon, see, you're releasing stress hour by hour rather than accumulating it hour by hour as the average person does. So, and so by the time you get home at night, you might feel like meditating. You won't be so tired or burned out or stressed out or full of angry thoughts about people during the day or something. So that's why those are very valuable. So it's like a supplement, meditation supplement. People take vitamin supplements, right? Why do they do that? Iron supplements, vitamin B12 supplements, you hear about it all the time. So what about a meditation supplement? People don't talk much about that. To fortify our mind, right? With the Dhamma, with mindfulness. So, and there's other times, even if you can't stop for 1 minute, many times during the day where you have 5 seconds here, 10 seconds there, kind of just idling, waiting for something to happen, where you look around, and, what's that person wearing the crummy shoes for? Our mind just, gets carried away, criticizing things, judging things, just for our own ego boost. Because you don't know what to do with your time. So when you know how to do standing, that's why I teach standing meditation, tell people to do it. Because otherwise they wouldn't do it, but it's so valuable. Standing in the checkout counter at the grocery store, waiting for the line to go down. Instead of, letting your eyes go over to the magazine rack. Michael Jackson was reborn. You can just feel your feet on the ground. Breathing in, standing, breathing out, standing. Or send metta to the cashier that's fumbling with the roll of tape that got jammed or something, and the guys in front of you are getting upset, and it's So you have to have fun with the Dhamma. You have to know how to have fun with the Dhamma. A lot of people think, oh, Dhamma's a drudgery. I have to walk slowly. I have to sit down and meditate. I can't tell a lie. So you have to have fun. Make it fun. So the M&Ms are one way to make it fun. Because anybody can stop for 1 minute. You'll feel good doing it. Just to release for 1 minute that's rushing, that mad rush to the future. Okay? So I want to see if there's any of you have any last questions for any Dhamma questions. I know some people have to get ready to leave pretty soon, so that's why I'm finishing the term. Any last questions? Okay, so as we did yesterday, coming to spend 3 days of a retreat is a lot of good Actually, meditation is the highest form of merit, more than giving danas, even more than practicing sila. Practicing meditation is even more powerful in terms of merit than those. But those 3 ways of practicing Dhamma, the dana, sila, the bhavana that I talked about yesterday, those are ways that, practicing the Dhamma in the daily life. So I wish you all the best, and whatever you might have learned from this retreat, even if it's just learning how to take a deep, slow breath, if that was all you learned, that can be very good. Or a minute of standing meditation, or learning how to do the walking and lifting, swinging, pressing. So, anyway, I wish you all the best in your life. Perhaps see you again. Okay, so somebody's supposed to be coming to give dana, but there's still about 20 minutes, but I know some of you are going to be leaving quite soon. But otherwise, if you didn't hear the announcement that I made after meditation, because some of you left the hall before I made that announcement about, if you used any linen like sheets or pillowcases or towels from the center, if you forgot to bring one from home and you used ours, please bring it down to the laundry room, put it on the counter there before you leave. And put your cushions away. I know 1 or 2 people are going to be staying here for another day or a few days, so you can leave your cushions out